the links to join the channel here over at Rumble, Subscribestar, Odyssey, or the rest. Let me open up with this image because it's just a great, great costume. Disney globalism is going. I realize as I say that it's like the center is on her boobs, but I actually meant the costume. I realized I had cropped out her headpiece, and now I just seem like a boob obsessed. I mean, who isn't? Who isn't a little bit boob obsessed? So Disney globalism is going to ruin Disney, and the Hollywood Analyst claims that a Disney reckoning, a reorganization, is coming shortly. Which, if you pay attention to this at all, you can see that what they're putting out is upside down from the amount of interest that people have in it. But there's, I mean, Disney and kind of all of Hollywood in general has a long history. They've got a history of all these bombs that come out. When the bombs come out, they make they make the news. It's movie to lose 50 to 100 to 150 million dollars is something, and you go, okay, well, yeah, I mean, movies have always had, you've always have a bomb every couple of years. And then the other movies at the other end of the spectrum make up for it. So you subsidize the losses and the companies are still profitable. That's just to be expected. And you start looking at Disney and you realize, like, seems like they've had a lot of movies that have underperformed lately. And it's not just the woo flu. I mean, that has something to do with it. It also feels like the movies, I guess you want to call them woke as a rough 30,000 foot approach. It seems like they're pushing a narrative that's not finding an audience. And yet, oddly enough, they keep pushing that narrative. So you go, okay, so well, where are the super mega hits that are subsidizing these movies? And then you look for them, it's like, it doesn't seem like Disney is having these super mega hits. So why do they keep making these woke movies? Well, you'd have to take a deeper dive into the Disney people. So a financial analyst is looking at Disney and he sees that clearly there is a problem. And with the streaming universe in general, it's not making what they need it to make. In some cases, isn't making money at all. Oh, what's this? Strange World, which is a show about a BLT relationship between children. Oh, that's not really the family-friendly Disney I'd come to expect, is it? They also feel that streaming is here for good. So what they're going to do is create tiers to raise prices for the top level with no ads, the premium subscription services. Then they'll have a middle tier that you still pay for, but it has a few ads. Then they're thinking about having free versions that's completely ad supported. We used to just call that TV. And back in my day, we had about a half a dozen channels. And that was it before cable. So we've come full circle with the bread and circuses, except the shows are even more cringy woke nonsense about how much Hollywood really seems to hate blue and green-eyed people. Hashtag White Lives Matter. I think the whole topic is fascinating because of the cultural Bolshevik aspect, which I feel not enough people are talking about, even on the right. It's weird, and it's as if much of the right wing is actually controlled opposition. It's like this naked elephant in the room that they just ignore. But those of us with the sunglasses keep pointing it out and trying to force the glasses on them. And I mean, some of it came up lately with Steven Crowder and the Daily Wire. That was interesting. The issue, and John Trent wrote this article and he very carefully picked these images, which I'm going to try to go through every single one. The issue with Disney and pop culture in general is that they're trying to sell something that people aren't buying, which seems so like more people need to speak frankly about these kind of things and, wash off political correctness, which I do thank the stars above that we have this alt social media that we're starting to push the window a little bit to the right. I will say that Rumble is kind of a middle ground where it's kind of like YouTube used to be a few years ago. You got more base content, but it's not full all the way. Bit Chute and Odyssey, and you've got like a ton of normie stuff that's just people are just tired of YouTube, and there's people who are doing streams on Rumble, and like they're getting 3,000 people in a live stream on Rumble, where if they did a YouTube stream, they'd get 500. And you go, that's crazy. Yeah, YouTube is a very heavily controlled algorithm. Anyway, so I roughly call this. I mean, to say like YouTube absolutely wants control of Google wants control of the narrative. Like that's a whole nother video. It's like, so where are you going to talk about it? You're not going to talk about it on Google Tube. So I roughly call this movement globalism, this use of entertainment to push a diverse agenda that doesn't resonate with people. It's sort of the opposite of tribalism, which is what humans are. They're doing this large-scale social experiment where they bring these different people together in every show, and they get along in the show to push this message, this agenda that everyone needs to mix. Don't say it in the comments. It's pretty clearly brainwashing an agenda. I mean, if you don't see it by now, it's like you just don't want to see it. But that's why we got to keep talking about it. It's why the fight scene in They Live was so long in his effort to try to get somebody to put on the sunglasses. It's like a 10-minute ridiculous fight scene. Now there is the issue of the technicalities of the streaming platform and making it profitable. Because there's nothing wrong with the concept. I mean, the concept is, well, you just have to start by making shows that people are willing to pay for. But that's also the problem because Hollywood is not like ordinary people. I mean, you gotta, like that you should be aware of also. It's not an ordinary business model. It's not, I mean, how many other organizations will openly like cheer for Weinstein and then they start hashtag Me Too to clean up the industry and then like 9 months later, hashtag Me Too just kind of disappears? Oh, what happened to that? Oh, well, it's a Hollywood thing. Yeah, you're trying to get all these Weinsteins out. Yeah, that's the problem. Is they're all left wing guys in Hollywood who are doing this. Oh, it's kind of an own goal there. But like, why don't you just keep doing it, clean up the industry, and you'll have a clean industry. Yeah, we're not going to do that. Okay, so you got a couple sacrificial guys to go down. They got about a dozen guys, and then you just stop. Oh, so the problem magically went away? No, it's still there. They just lost their nerve. That's a pretty scummy industry. It's not primarily a business at all. It's something else, and money is not the motivator. They have a much lower motivation. But what is Disney trying to sell? Diversity, inclusion, and equity? Another way to package Bolshevism or communism, call it what you will. They're pushing a BLT, diverse globalist agenda. They make shows that don't resonate with people because humans are tribal. They have been that way with in-group preferences for millions of years, tens of millions of years before they have even been humans. Because it works. It makes sense. It's just game theory. And then the globalists, their precursors, came along 100 years ago, 14, 17 or something. And all it takes is 100 years of brainwashing, and you have some very confused people. You can look around America, Canada, Australia, Western Europe, and you can see the results of that brainwashing. But most people aren't on board with it. I mean, whether from a political standpoint, like people are looking at their governments and going, we don't want what you're doing, especially the situation in Ireland. And they're starting to stand up against it. And they go, yeah, or in Germany too, people are standing up against it. They go, yeah, we really don't want this. And you're doing it anyway. Yeah, that's why. I mean, that's why the adage is you're not going to vote your way out of it. I mean, the government is not acting in accord. But they're also seeing this kind of stuff in pop culture, also, because the film version of the propaganda doesn't catch on when it's too heavy-handed. And don't get me wrong, I am well aware that films have always been propaganda. I mean, not every film, but I mean, the propaganda goes back a long ways. But post-war, they started to take the mask off and just accelerate as they got more and more power. I mean, that's the problem of putting on the glasses is you go back in older Hollywood films and you see it, you just see it in earlier films to the point where you just start watching, like you start watching foreign films where it's just not as prevalent as it is in American Hollywood. Let's talk about a weird scene in She-Hulk. She's like, I don't, almost 40, like literally a grandmother's age. And they're talking, there's this scene, they're talking with their parents as if they're 18 years old, they just got married, they're going to have kids, or 20 or something, talking about raising kids somewhere. She's a grandmother's age, and you're pushing this narrative that, oh, yeah, at 40, that's when you settle down and start a family. That was an insane scene. And there's so many little scenes in these movies you could point out. And once you point it out to people, at first people hear you and they go, oh, tinfoil hat, tinfoil hat. And then you keep pointing it out and they go, holy cow, this stuff is all real. It's like you might still be wearing a tinfoil hat, because I'll admit the people who go down the rabbit hole, you can get a little obsessed with it. But when it's all there and you can just show it to people and go, yeah, we might be a little weird, but I mean, the stuff, it doesn't mean the stuff's not here. It's really here. It's like, it's just one scene. No, when you can point to everything and you can just point out scenes after scene after scene, eventually we just drag these people down the rabbit hole with us. So now Hollywood's kind of in a weird position because of the events of the summer of Soros' violent love in 2020. Hollywood painted itself into this woke, weird, anti-white corner, which is simple to explain, but perhaps not politically correct. This movie, example, this movie should have connected with an audience, and it still hasn't quite turned a profit. It's going to, but like just barely. And it's taking, I mean, people want to return on their investment as fast as possible, obviously, because you want to put that money into other investments. Like 10 years ago, this movie should have been a hit. And it's just not connecting with an audience because people are are losing their I almost said hard on. They're losing their excitement for, but sorry, losing their excitement for Hollywood, because you got so much stuff that came out. Like I remember I saw this movie with a buddy, and we saw like three in one day. We saw this, the GI Joe, what's the GI Joe movie that came out? Not the Snake Eyes character or something. That movie came out. I mean, it's just forgettable. I don't even remember anything about it other than it was forgettable. And then Black Widow with Scarlett Johansson. We saw this, and I think we saw all three together on one day talking about it for Bit Chute or something. And you watch all these movies, and there's just kind of nothing there. It's just it feels like you took a movie and you just slightly detuned it to I don't know. You took some of the excitement out of it, and it's like you're going through the motions of making all these movies, and there's just nothing there. That the magic of Hollywood has been lost, and this is coming from people who were very much on board with the superhero genre of films. But something happened, post 2019, 2020, where they're just not making movies like they used to. Okay, okay, pops. Yeah, but I mean, you can look at the objective return on investment. The numbers are showing that people are not going. They're not. There's fewer butts in seats, so they have to raise prices, and even then, it's a lot of the stuff is not finding the audience. So people are very tribal. They don't want to see non-tribal stories. They want to see themselves reflected on screen. To the left, representation is so important. Oh, okay, cool. Let's see some Irish, some German, some French, some English. Oh, we're just gonna no, we're not gonna give you representation. Why not? Why not? I want to see some Eastern Europeans, Western Europeans, Northern Europeans, Southern. No, we're just gonna all lump you in as one group, just roughly. Oh yeah, we don't want that. We want representation on the screen. We want to see ourselves on the screen. Well, we're not going to give it to you. Well, before social media, you weren't able to talk about this very stuff, which is, I think, important to talk about to shine a light on Hollywood. People want to see themselves. They want to see their stories, which is why the Lord of the Rings of Power thing was such an insult. So it's an English story, and you're taking the English people, at least the European people, taking them out of the story. That feels evil to me. Something like this kind of Marvel stuff, it doesn't matter so much. I mean, this was always okay. This actually does matter a little bit because this is a Norse religion that is still practiced to this day. And you took a not even a Northern European person or a European person at all, and you put them in a Norse religion that is still an active religion. The Scandinavian people, and I mean, there's a lot of people that get on board with it, but it's a European religion, and you took someone from 10,000 miles away, and they did it the same with what's that name, the She-Hulk thing, not the She-Hulk, the Thor thing, who's that girl, that girl who played Thor. It's like she's not of European origin, she's not Northern European. I mean, not to get too base for YouTube, but it doesn't make sense. It's like, oh, isn't that cultural appropriation? Shouldn't you have a Scandinavian person, someone play the role? Like how do you have this person playing the role of a Valkyrie? Would you do the reverse? Would you have an African religion and have a Swedish person play that role? Oh no, that would be insulting. Yeah. So why are you doing it to us? Oh, because you don't matter. We can degrade and dehumanize you as part of the humiliation ritual. That's why I keep saying those words, because they matter. Hollywood is only interested in making cultural Bolshevik propaganda. And I feel it's important to not just call the stuff woke or cancer, but to actually use the hot words that are closer to being over the target. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe, join the Subscribe Star. If you want to support this work, this critically important work, when it eventually leaves YouTube and goes to Rumble and Odyssey and Subscribe Star and Bit Chute and everywhere else. And I will see you guys all next episode.